Turned by McKenna! Lovely cushion header. And Gerrard! What a head, son! What a head! Aguero!
Hello and welcome back to the Premier League Trio podcast. My name is Hader and I'm your host as usual today. I'm delighted to be joined by Rob Blanchette again. He was fantastic only last week. It feels like an age, doesn't it, during the transfer window? But he's back to talk to me about United. Honestly, Rob, we were just talking off air, but I feel absolutely deflated. Honestly, I just didn't see us having that terrible of a performance, that sort of result. I don't remember us going into a season with such a poor performance. Look, I'm 25. Obviously, I don't remember sort of beyond the Fergie era. But look, just talk to me about how you're feeling. And you did mention off air that you're not so much angry anymore. It's kind of like you're resigned to the fact that we are where we are and we can't change it.
Yeah, I think there's so many things at play at Manchester United that have been there for 15 years and beyond, in terms of the structure of the football club and what we're seeing as fans and as myself as a journalist. What we saw yesterday, we can really kind of grind it down in terms of players and performances and management style. But ultimately, there are other things that we need to consider. Certainly that Manchester United have not had a decent pre-season at all. I think that's on the football club. They had to kind of schedule that better. They tried to give players rest, obviously off the back of the Europa League. And you could see that going into that first game yesterday, they weren't ready. So it's as simple as that with this failure. But in the Premier League as well now, every game is so vital. I think I even said on your podcast before, United will be judged when they play the likes of Crystal Palace rather than when they play Liverpool and when they play City, because those games are your big one-offs. But you have to beat teams like Crystal Palace if you want to be in the top four and if you want to challenge. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. You did say exactly that. It's the smaller games where we've obviously been dropping points. It's no secret that the last 4 or 5 years we can go and beat the bigger sides, play on the counter. But when we go and try and break a team down, which is exactly what happened yesterday. But my issues probably are the fact that there was enough quality on the pitch to do that. You look at that midfield. When I looked at that midfield, Bruno, Pogba, I know McTominay was playing. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan, but the performances mirrored the performances, and we had Lingard, Pereira, Fred in midfield. And look, I completely agree when you talk about the preseason. They were so undercooked. Palace has played a preseason and a game, but the defense, Rob, the defense was so wide open. I've wanted Jadon Sancho since the beginning, but if we're just going to buy Jadon Sancho, I think the money has to be spent on that defense. I think you need a centre back. Yesterday, on the podcast I was on, I was talking to someone, and he was saying that United statistically, obviously, were the third best defense in the league with 36 conceded. But out of those 36 goals, 11 of them were individual mistakes. So that suggests to me it's not a coaching problem. It's a personnel problem. It doesn't matter who you put in that defense. Lindelof is littered with mistakes. Maguire, for me, Khalifa says here, hi. I agree. Lindelof needs to be given a seat on the bench for a few weeks. I tweeted out this morning that, look, you talk up Mengi as much as you want, then chuck the lad in because it's just not working. You can't go forward with Maguire and Lindelof again. Then you look at the left-back position. There's people genuinely saying when we were linked with Reguilon and then Tellez that we don't need them, that Luke Shaw's good enough. Luke Shaw's not good enough. And you can have all the best attacking players in that front six, but if you've got that defense behind you, you've got no chance.
Yeah, I think, again, we're talking about statistics. Last year, Harry Maguire coming to the football club, obviously for a world record fee for a defender. If you pay that kind of money, you're looking for a kind of the most elite defender that you can find on the planet, because that's what the transfer fee says. However, I think when you look at what United achieved last year in terms of coming third and with their defensive record, there's no doubt that Maguire's presence did improve things from the previous season and the season before that. The issue is the pairings and the chemistry and how that back four works, as components. And there's, like you just said there, I totally agree. And it's something I've banged a drum with for a long time now. is that you cannot really play Lindelof and Maguire as partners. It just doesn't work. They're both too slow. Maguire is traditionally a ball playing centre back, and he needs pace next to him. That's the simple truth. What you see with Manchester United, and you saw with Crystal Palace yesterday, is that whenever they face pace, the space in between behind them is always vulnerable. And Palace just did that over and over. That's all Palace really did. Palace didn't really kind of play out from the back or did anything that you didn't expect them to do. Again, on another podcast, I said that really the game was going to be about Manchester United and how they played, because if they play poorly, Wilfried Zaha will outrun the two centre-backs. That's exactly what happened. That's how United lost the football match. So I agree with you. Like you said about Luke Shaw, there it's not a case whether the jury's in or out on Luke. I think yesterday he had periods where he improved through the game, but obviously he was also at fault for the opening goal. Didn't cover, didn't get back, and just I don't know, lack of, I don't know if it's motivation. I don't really like to use that word with footballers, but sometimes you just think to yourself, why did you not put your foot on the gas? But I think it's more to do with the whole of that back four. And I'll include De Gea in that, the back five. I think it's hard for De Gea to be the kind of keeper that he is. He's not a sweeper keeper. And to have to fill that space in front of him. And we saw yesterday he made 2 or 3 mistakes with that. That all then just breeds problems within their heads, the psychological issues of defending. So I agree. I think United need a defender. However, whether you bring a Mengi or whether you get Tuanzebe fit, whether you bring back Bailly, it depends. It's up to Ole to kind of make those decisions. He started off with his 2 starting centre-backs from last season, and I thought he'd give them a go. And I think they failed as a partnership yesterday.
Absolutely. And Rohit, hello, mate. Thanks for coming on and getting involved. Guys, make sure you go to the YouTube channel because you can click the like button and the subscribe button. It's much better than doing it on Periscope. So, just type in the Premier League Trio and you'll be able to find us live there as well. Rohit, you're completely right, mate. Lindelof should be back up to for Maguire, not partnering him. I think anyone can see that. It's so obvious. Khalifa, again, chemistry is key in the back four. Absolutely. Look, title-winning sides are built on that back four and that those partnerships across the pitch, and I just think you're looking at United's centre-back pairing. It's not working. Sudesh has said, how about Bailly next to Maguire in defence when fit? Look, you've just said it in the next line. Bailly has fitness issues. Bailly could be the best defender in the world, but if you can't keep fit, what's your use to the team? And I think that's the problem. United have got too many centre-backs that are injured. You've got Rojo, who's injured all the time. Jones, sick note. Bailly, you can't rely on them. And I love Tuanzebe as much as next person, but if he can't keep fit and get himself minutes on the pitch, then you can't rely on them. Mengi's been talked about a lot, and I just think that, look, would you have chucked Mengi in? Because we keep on talking about Mengi, but the guy's a kid. He's 18 years old. You're asking him to go and play in the central defense for the biggest club in the world, one of the hardest clubs to play for. And kids naturally have inconsistencies. They have ups and downs to their game. That how long before the fans are now on his back as well? And also, clear for the YouTube is the Premier League Trio. Try and look for it. Just type it in, or just go on my profile and you should be able to see it.
The problem for Mengi obviously is his lack of experience and his youth and all of that. But however, that can also be a positive when you're dropping in someone into a team. The difference is that centre back is one of those positions where you want experience. So I totally see all of that, and I think that's why United might have to enter the transfer market to address that issue. I think as well, you look last year with Chelsea, when Chelsea had problems and injuries at centre back. They rushed through Tomori, and Tomori had a great loan spell the year before under Lampard, and he was arguably their best player for a month or two. He came in and he did the job. Now he's not in the team at the moment at Chelsea, and he's probably going out on loan. But it shows that you can parachute someone in if you've got a problem, and you shouldn't always have to just wait until there's injuries to give people a chance. You should have a more kind of widescreen approach, I think, to your vision on these things. And we do see Mengi as a long-term starter potentially at Manchester United. So it's hard because I can totally see why Ole went with that back four yesterday. I don't think there was much controversial about the selection. People were going mad on Twitter, but it's ultimately down to fitness and down to the pre-season and the shape of that. And all of those selections, even if people don't like the players or where they played, there's reasons for it, and he's playing those two senior centre-backs because they're the senior centre-backs. It's just that we're getting to a point now where we said it last year multiple times that they are too slow. So Ole has to react to that, and he'll live and die by these decisions. Like, I think Mourinho was exactly the same. He played players out of position and in different roles, and it didn't work, and that's on him because he's the manager. Ultimately, it's the same for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. If he has these, he's got 5 or 6 centre backs to choose from. He's got to find a method or a way, or demand that the board buy him a new centre back. And I actually think that might be where we end up. Is that United are looking for an elite centre back. We know obviously the people that they've been linked with. Whether they get it over the line, this is the bigger issue, I think, with Ed Woodward at the moment.
We all know who it is, isn't it? It's Upamecano. James Jackson, hello, mate. Nice to see you as usual. We have 8 centre-backs and can't get a decent partnership together. We conceded so few last season because of Matic. That's absolutely spot on. And Alan Bins, hello, Alan, mate. Nice to see you here. Our midfield was a concern as well. Missed the presence of Matic. Matic helped our defence settle last season. Honestly, I think anyone that sort of understands the way that United play will know that Nemanja Matic is the key for United's attack, foundation for United's attack. We saw when Matic came into the side how more freely that Pogba, Bruno, the attacking players could go forward. He also used to drop into centre-backs. That centre-back pairing looked so much more solid because of Matic. And I would agree, it's not because of those centre-back pairing. You put McTominay in there, and I was a bit puzzled by that decision as well. I just don't see what McTominay offers currently. I'm not saying he won't be a good player. I like him. I like his passion. I like his desire. But you can have all those things, but you need to have quality on the ball. You need to have technical ability. And I just thought it was a bit of a strange one. And look, when we knew Palace were going to sit deep, United needed more ball playing ability in there. And I would have probably started Van der Beek. And this segues nicely into the tactical selection. For me, I think I wasn't really complaining. I was not happy about Dan James or Fosu-Mensah at all, but I think that just, for me, it kind of mirrors the problem that we have. What the squad is lacking quality and depth. We knew that as soon as Greenwood, Martial, Rashford are out, you've got Dan James in, and Dan James gets a rough ride, but he's just simply not good enough, Rob, to be playing any games for Man United right now. Not enough end product. I just don't see what he offers apart from his pace. Fosu-Mensah is another one where you look at it and you think, what has Dalot done to not get a chance? I just don't understand what he's done. Fosu-Mensah was on loan, 2 poor loans at Palace and Fulham. Come back, hasn't played for 3 years, and now he's starting or competing or second choice right back for Man United. That's part of the problem, right? We look at our squad and there's just not enough quality. And I see people going in at Ole, and you know my views on Ole, and I think a lot of listeners do as well. I was not hot on Ole come Christmas, but he's turned it around. And I think yesterday was not an issue with Ole. It was the bigger picture, that the lack of investment, the lack of options, as you said, the poor preseason or lack of preseason, just everything came back to bite him. And you're seeing people say Ole out. I mean, that's short-sighted. Am I right?
I would say it's short-sighted, but I also understand why people are saying it. Like they football fans watch the game with their eyes and their emotions, and that's how they engage in the sport. I think the whole thing about selections and tactics is that, there's 2 big facets of why players are selected. One is the sports science side of the job, which is where Ole will be analysing data with his team and his coaching team to see who's actually fit. Every training session that they do, they're monitored up. Everything is tracked. And that's a really, really important part of modern football. It's the bit that fans just really don't dial into because it's not interesting. The other side of it is how someone trains. You're actually watching them with your eyes. Is this player ready? And the whole point was that the players that we saw selected yesterday, they were the guys that Ole thought were more ready than others. Paul Pogba played, even though he was isolating with the coronavirus before, because he trained really well. So that was why Ole put him in. However, we did see that he faded quite dramatically in the second half and he was tired. That's not his fault. That really, really is not his fault. That's just where you are in your fitness. And I think you see this in all elite sports where if you're just a little bit off in terms of percentages of your highest levels, you get exposed and you get beaten and you get hurt. And Manchester United are in that place where we know that even when everyone is fit, there's still issues within the squad of selection. That's still a problem for Ole, and there's still a problem for the club as a whole. So yesterday, Palace came fit and ready. Andros Townsend said in his interview afterwards that they knew that they had an edge on United and they were going to exploit it. They had a mental edge and they had a physical edge, and they knew it. And that was the game plan. And it worked because Manchester United couldn't really move through the gears. And we've seen with this United team that it does take them a few games to get their motors running. We saw it kind of after the lockdown. We saw it last season where they had a terrible run at the start of the campaign. This is nothing new. United don't really have a kind of dynamic set of players. However, looking at someone like Van der Beek coming in, you can already see yesterday that if he starts games, and he will do, he is going to be a dynamic midfielder. He is going to bring energy to that whole football team, just in the same way that Bruno did. So one defeat is not good. It's heart-wrenching when they play so badly, and I get why fans are upset. But it's also the time to just stand back and let's see what happens for 3 or 4 or 5 games. Between now and the end of the transfer window, that's key now for the Glazers if they want to invest in this football club. That was always the question. United do still have positions that they need to bring players in. We know this. It's hard to say to fans, don't worry, but at this moment of time, the smart thing is to see what happens in the next game and the game after that.
Yeah, some fantastic points. Rohit definitely agrees with you here. He says, excellent comment by Rob on need for games to get the motor running. Hence, we need patience. Look, my biggest issues yesterday, it wasn't necessarily leveled at the management or the players on show, because I was completely aware and I was thinking, we haven't played at all. These players have just come back and you chuck them into a game and they've got to play. And you saw that. But my issue mainly has been the fact that we knew what we had to do before the season. The ownership knew what we had to do. The board knew what we had to do. And everyone can go on about COVID. And I think that's fine. Look, we're in an unprecedented time. But at the end of the day, Everton are spending, Chelsea are spending. Yes, different business models. But Liverpool, who everyone thought didn't have any money, have just wrapped up Thiago and Jota for less than 80 million, what it would have cost to buy Grealish. There's deals to be made. There's ability to do it. But I just don't think, Rob, and I know last time we spoke, and you're right, look, I said I'd reserve judgment till the end of the window, 5th of October, because I do think United will be active. I think United will sign a couple of players. But the point is that I think fans are very entitled to question the appetite of the owners. They're able to question whether they even care, because this is not something that's happened one summer. This has been going on for years. This has been going on since Sir Alex, back in the day when Sir Alex would say no value in the market, all this sort of rubbish. He was just a genius and papered over the cracks. And this is a point that United fans now, they're unhappy, they're angry, they want change, but they just don't know what they're going to do. And the problem is that sections and quarters of the fan base are aiming at the manager, thinking, okay, and management change. Look, there is maybe an argument that if you had a more experienced manager, I'm just playing devil advocate, that United would have played better yesterday. They would look like a better side. I completely agree with that. But I think anyone that thinks you could bring an Ancelotti or a Pochettino, even a Klopp into the side and thinks they're going to win the league, mate, no chance. There's no chance the squad wins the league. And so we're kind of in that sort of, I guess we're in that purgatory sort of area where we're just in limbo, aren't we? Like, what do United fans do, and where do fans direct that anger? Because nothing's getting changed. And I spoke to James Jackson. He's commented here. He said here, our engine Rob seems to last 15, 20 games and falls off a cliff. We're either prime Sir Alex or Rotherham at the moment in between. Yeah, that's consistency. But I think, James, that's to do with the squad as well. The squad is just not good enough. It's not deep enough. We can beat anyone on our day. But I think when it comes to sustaining for a season and actually having a title challenge or winning trophies, I just don't think we've got the quality or we're good enough. But something I do want to say is that I spoke to James Jackson, obviously the one that commented earlier this morning, and I said to him that the Glazers are businessmen. They look at value. Getting into the Champions League got them 100 million. From getting from 4th to 1st, monetarily only gets you, 30, 40 extra million. So for them, as businessmen, why would you go and spend 200 million on the squad to make that extra 30 million? Because they're not footballing men. They don't mind. The objective is top 4. The objective is getting that commercial revenue of that 100 million. It's not to win the title. Obviously, if they manage to win the title because they've got a brilliant manager, then it's good for the club. But when the money is rolling in and when they are essentially still making their commercial objectives, they don't care, do they?
No, they don't. It's as simple as that. And that we've always known this about the Glazers. They are professional sports owners. They are in it for the money. They're there to service their other businesses. They take dividends out of Manchester United every 6 months. That's something they've always done. They've laden the whole football club with tons and tons and tons of debt. These are things that we all know. We also know that they have spent over £1 billion on players in recent years. £1 billion. So the issue is the money there to spend. Manchester United have got the money to spend. Everyone knows this. Well, you can see the financial accounts when they're published. It's all there for us to see as journalists and as fans. The issue is the recruitment, and that's really been a long-term problem for Manchester United, and we are still suffering from that. And this is why I said, even after last season coming third and where Ole kind of took the team in the end, it's the perpetual problem that just keeps going and going and going, is that you have to kind of replace each player one step at a time. There is no quick fix. I know we talked about Chelsea there before, and other teams like Liverpool have just gone out and bought 2 players. It depends where you are in your build and where you are in your immediate objectives. Now, Manchester United want long-term success. The reason why they want that, the reason why the Glazers want that, is because that strengthens their business model. If they ever want to sell Manchester United one day, they need to sell a strong football club. They know this. This is how the real elite big business works. We're talking billions and trillions. We're not talking just, a few thousand quid here, and it's about long-term strategy. So, for instance, obviously lots of fans are upset that United haven't concluded their transfer business before the first game of the season. Now, this is not the first time that Manchester United have done this. It's also not the first time that other football clubs in the Premier League have done this. It's quite common that people wait and see and have that approach. And I think that's what they were doing yesterday. It was a kind of, right, let's get the boys out there. Let's have a look at where we stand. If Manchester United win 5-0 yesterday and look fantastic, does it really change United's chances of winning anything? The truth is, no. All that does is keep the fans happy for an extra day. It doesn't mean the squad's any better. So you have to also, it's not devil's advocate, but you have to look at the real detail and think why the football club is where it is. There's no doubt that Manchester United need to bring in players. If they do not bring in any more players before October 5th, then that is a huge failure on the part of the owners. We know from the press here, from our work, that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has given Ed Woodward the players that he wants, in the same way that Mourinho once did. And it's then up to the board to decide whether they cash in and actually go and buy those players, or do they look at alternatives? And I think for Man United is that they've always had this idea that there will be COVID discounts in the last week of the window, and that they will get players slightly on the cheap. And as I said the other day, if you're going to pay 108 million for Jadon Sancho, if you get him for 100 million, now to a fan, that's nothing. It's like 8 million quid knocked off. That 8 million quid stuck on your profit and loss is a big figure. So fans don't like it. Fans don't care about it. I don't care about it. I'm a football fan at the end of the day. I support Man United. I want the right player. I always say I don't care about transfer fees. That's up to the Glazers to sort out. But they look at it as their money. And if they're thinking, right, we might lose a game in this period, but we'll take that because we're going to save 8 million quid. They're businessmen, like you said at the start. That's how they think. And I think fans can certainly vent their anger at the Glazers for that. But you're not going to change that. You're not going to change that unless you find a way of actually protesting and getting them out of the football club. And I think Manchester United fans, even though they've been very vocal for many years since the Glazers took the club over, they've not really done a great job in terms of the protests. I've been to the protests. I've seen it. I've spoken to people.
Not like Arsenal, Rob, when they wanted Wenger out.
Yeah,
they were much more.
Yeah, they were, but again, it depends who you listen to, isn't it? I still think with the Wenger out crew, I spoke to lots of Arsenal people at that time, and the vast majority didn't really want him out. It was just really the loud minority who would get in front of a camera and shout. Yeah, so great, well done to you. But you're not changing anything. You're not pushing real change. What we've seen in other football clubs abroad is that if, for instance, they're not happy with the board or they're not happy with things going, they just don't go to the games. So they have an empty stadium. And as soon as you've got an empty stadium, things change. Manchester United fans haven't done that. So that's not a criticism of United in a direct sense, but it's actually kind of what the wider picture of what we're talking about with the owners and the fans and everything that goes with it. If United release a new shirt and everyone goes and buys it, what message is that to the owners? So it is a difficult quandary, but at the same time, these are not new problems.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I'm just going to read out a few comments, Rob. Mr. Ahmed, I used to work with Ahmed. How you doing, mate? It's been a while, hasn't it? I haven't seen you since March. You should definitely catch up when things die down a little bit. But he says he's right. Look, Rob Dawson from ESPN did a fantastic piece the other day. I'm sure you've read it. I'm sure a lot of the listeners have. If you haven't, make sure you check it out. And guys, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe button. Go to the YouTube page, our YouTube page, The Premier League Trio, and go there and just hit the like button and subscribe. But thank you for getting involved. Some great comments as usual. He says United spent an average of 85.4. I'm guessing there's a million on there, not pounds, but when they've qualified for the Champions League, when they haven't, we've missed out. He says here the next comment, we spent about on average 161.8 million. Yeah, that's true. Look, I think everyone knows that, and a lot of people are saying that if United hadn't actually finished in the Champions League, we'd be spending the money now, and that's the sad reality of it. As I was saying earlier, that 100 million to get into the Champions League is the objective. We used to laugh at Arsenal fans or their ownership for getting top four, but we've become that club, and it's bitterly disappointing. I'll read out a few more. Maram Al-Bahana. The owners hung out Oli to dry by letting him to go out with the same squad as last season. That wasn't good enough. I agree with that. He says another comment, fitness would be a huge issue if we had squad, wouldn't be a huge issue if we had squad depth. I think I agree with that. Rob, you're getting some love here by Ray as well. Big up, Rob. Big picture Blanchette for the wisdom and truth. Look, that's one of the best things about Rob, though. He just, like, you see the bigger picture. You're calm. You're calming in presence. That's why I wanted you to come on today. I've been down. I've been frustrated. I will agree with you, though. It's more sort of depression rather than anger. I'm not angry anymore because we've seen this time and time again. I'm just so just drained. And I've been drained all week when it's come to United and even to our fan base. I want to talk about our fan base because we've got the most amazing and diverse fan base all around the world. And I think that's great that we've got different people with different views, and that's a great thing. That's only a good thing. But what I'm really struggling with at the moment, me personally, and maybe you can agree with that. I know you're big on Twitter, so I'm sure you see all different facets of the fan base. But I'm struggling with the negativity. I'm struggling with the infighting. I'm struggling with the toxicity. I read a really good article by Nicole, and she wrote one about the split fan base, and it just outlines everything. And I don't know what to say, because if you turn around and agree with different sides, and you get called a puppet, you're this or that. And I mean, what can the fan base do? Because some people don't like the manager, some people still like Mourinho. I don't understand that. Mourinho's gone, get over it. He's a Spurs fan now. As James Jackson says here, how do you mobilize a worldwide fan base of 300 million not to buy shirts? And this is a point. Like, you can't tell someone not to go and spend their hard-earned money on it. I know obviously you're feeding the problem. With the Glazers, they don't care about the trophies, they care about the bottom line. Where you want to hit them, you hit their pocket, don't buy their stuff. But you can't go and monitor everyone and say, don't do this, don't do that. As well as James says here, as soon as the grounds are open, we have day trippers, people who have dreamt of going to Old Trafford all their life, and they eventually get the opportunity. You can't tell someone not to do that. Of course, that feeds into the problem, but what can United do? Because in my opinion, unfortunately, the Glazers are here to stay unless there's a mass protest of some sort, or some absolutely rich oligarch comes in. We're stuck in this situation. It's going to be that vicious cycle. Rusty say, hello, Rusty, mate. Hope you're having a nice weekend. Yesterday was pretty bad. He says, seriously think we peaked last season. Fitness and sharpness was all for your sake. Completely agree, mate. But Rob, what's your view on that idea of mobilizing the fan base? Because this is the most split it's ever been. If you think about it, there's the older fans, I would say, who, look, I'm a younger one, but, you know, it's more of the hardcore older fans, and you've got overseas fans. You've got the younger sort of vlogging sort of fans. You've got so many different factions, and they're just at each other's neck consistently. I mean, what can United do to unite that, and what's the way forward?
See, I don't think that is a uniquely Manchester United thing. I think that is how football Twitter is, and I think that's how social media has changed the game in the last 10 years. How do you stop people buying into the things that the whole of society buys into? Commercialism, materialism, bandwagonism, all these things of why someone thinks something. You can't take a billion people and tell them all to do the same thing and they all agree. It doesn't work like that. You certainly could mobilise the season ticket holders at Old Trafford and find a way for them to make their point with the Glazers. And I think, it was tried with the green and gold campaign before, and it was really visually striking. But the problem is, if you're just going to wave a green and gold scarf around your head and sit in your seat, that's not really going to work. I wore green and gold as well. Hold my hand up. I followed what people were doing.
So
what
I would
like
to, the same
yeah,
thing.
what I'd have liked to see. What I'd have liked to see at that time, and we are now talking like 10 years ago. I'd have liked to have seen that United fans maybe turned up at the game and at halftime we walked out and did that every game, because that would be the biggest football news story in the world. And that is how you get at an owner. You get at an owner by hurting them visually and through their PR. And that's what the Glazers do really well. They have a PR machine with Manchester United and abroad, and how they're viewed. And obviously, people who support Manchester United, you go to different corners of the world, and everyone's got a different opinion about what Manchester United is. I always say that United are like the New York Yankees of football, in the sense that you'll see people walking down your high street wearing a New York Yankees baseball cap, looking good in it, and then they won't know anything about the team. And that's Manchester United in a nutshell. You go abroad and there's people wearing Manchester United baseball caps and shirts with not a clue about what the team's about. So it's difficult when we talk about fan base, because they're not necessarily supporters. They might just like the brand of Manchester United. Here I am in an Adidas top with Manchester United on it. I'm a supporter. I've obviously got loads of paraphernalia and everything, because that's kind of part of being a long-term fan of a football club, isn't it? We've all got the shirts and bought things from the club shop. But it's hard to mobilise it, because most people don't see it as an issue. Most people don't see that what the Glazers have done to Manchester United is a huge issue in terms of the debt that they've put on the football club, because it's not something they see or feel or smell. It's not something that's part of their lives. It's just on the internet on a page somewhere where someone's moaning about it or someone's tweeting about it. This is why I'm always kind of quite au fait with the kind of love United, hate Glazers movement, because these guys put all this and do the hashtags, but it doesn't change anything. It's pointless. You're screaming into a void, into something that doesn't echo. It's an echo chamber. It doesn't come back at you. You don't get any kudos for it. You just maybe get a few people around you who go, "Oh, right, I now know what your opinion is." And that's why I keep saying that the issues at Manchester United are wide. They're deep. The structure of the football club isn't great. But at the same time, would I like United to sell to a Middle East faction where I'm not happy with what they do, like at Manchester City? No, I wouldn't. So there is this problem in terms of capitalism about how our football clubs are structured. So it's tough. What do you do to get rid of the Glazers? There are plenty of things you can do that are peaceful and that work. We've just seen in society with things like Black Lives Matter. It's not a new subject, is it? Racism. We know it's been there forever, but you're seeing a kind of more groundswell of how people react to the issue, and it might prompt change. It might not. Manchester United, there's a similarity there for football fans. I don't think you'll find one season ticket holder at Old Trafford who will say that they're a supporter of the Glazers. Not one. Every United fan you speak to, because they're invested in it, because they go to the games, they're there every week. It's part of their heart and their soul. Not one will say, "Yeah, I'm all right with what the owners are doing." So the other side of the coin, like we just said there about performances and players being tired and whatnot, if United had bought Jadon Sancho and he played yesterday and United won 5-0, does that mean everything is cured at Manchester United? No, it doesn't. So you have to kind of look at success and failure as the same thing sometimes, and actually keep just trying to move forward. And I think that's where Manchester United are, especially where Ole is in terms of his squad building, because one defeat doesn't change anything too much. Yeah, if we get to November and December and United are 14th and miles off it, there's every chance he'll be sacked. And the Glazers look at it like that. Just it'll be very, very simple. Doesn't matter if fans are Ole in or Ole out. Those things don't really matter. It doesn't matter if they think he's Pep Guardiola or if he's Jurgen Klopp, or if he's not as good as them. Those things don't really matter at the end of the day. I know fans want to vent about it, and they've got the means to vent, but they've also got to understand that control is kind of out of their hands, the way that maybe society is structured around football.
Mate, that's a phenomenal answer. It's such a great insight. To all the listeners, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button. We'll put Rob's at handle's actually there, so you can just follow him. He's got some great insight. And if you want to follow me as well, follow me. I'm not as insightful as Rob, but I do okay. But James Jackson says here, I've researched this a little, and no sports franchise has ever been sold for more than $2 billion, and we are valued at $3.8 billion without the debt. Yeah, exactly, mate. And look, I just think I've got a few things to say. The Love United, Hate Glazers sort of movement has just been hijacked by a bunch of idiots who are just spreading negativity. I mean, do you remember is it Max Taylor, the young lad who had cancer and he in the academy and he came back last season? I saw the most disgusting tweet from one Mike, Mike, the Love United, Hate Glazer guy, basically mocking that. And this is a problem that there's those that are trying to do good, and I follow a few of those people, but they're just getting sucked up, as you said, into that void of that negativity. And look, there's a few comments here. Ray says, he's saying to the Green Devil that I'm guessing you forgot the time our ultras tried to storm the Woody's house. These lots sing about death threats on daily. Problem is people as a collective either go big or small. And he's said back, bit of a conspiracy around those ultras. I agree with that. Look, Rob, what's your view on that? Because we saw that whole thing where these ultras went to Woodward's house. Funny enough, at that same time, Neil Ashton became the sort of PR man for United. How much of a truth was that, or was it literally just something they set up for the media? Because I just don't see any United fans ever doing that at all.
It's fake news.
Yeah,
it's fake news.
I mean, have you heard anything in the circles from that? Was it definitely set up?
It's absolutely 100% known that they were kids. Yeah, they were kids going to Ed Woodward's Drive, singing a few songs. They weren't ultras. Manchester United don't have ultras. It's not the truth, But I know other clubs abroad have an ultra section, and we might have people at Old Trafford that maybe think they're a little bit harder than the other fans and all of that. We do not have ultras. There is not an ultras group anymore. There was in the 70s. United could go around and fight other times when football hooliganism was on the agenda, and it was always there. But it's not really there now. I think it was about 20 young lads who went, filmed it all on Snapchat, put it out. The press picked it up. It was all in the tabloids that day. And then when we investigated it and looked at it, it was all absolute claptrap. So people still believe that legend, which is weird because it was like a year ago. It wasn't real. It didn't happen. So people can just dismiss that rubbish. It wasn't a thing. It was just a news story for the tabloids that day. And Ed Woodward wasn't even there. He was on holiday. Manchester United were very much aware of it. United went and dealt with it very quietly. They were taken away, and that was it. And they were kids. It's never happened again since, has it? They're not ultras at the end of the day. They're just a few kids who live locally and actually trekked there and decided to do it. And there's enough Snapchat footage that was uploaded to YouTube and all at that time. You can Google it here now. That shows that really it was just children at the end of the day. Those things don't work. You can go to the owners' houses, and people who work for the football club. Ed Woodward's Drive's about 3 miles long. It's not going to do anything. There's with a big gate. That's not the way to protest. There is an effective way to protest. That should be at the ground. That should be in and around the stadium. And what I found in maybe the last 10 years is that the guys who have organised protests have got their hearts in the right place. But I think that they've done it in a way that hasn't garnered the kind of support that I think it would if they did it properly. And they haven't. So, Must are obviously the voice for the fans at Manchester United, and they have to kind of balance a happy place between wanting to have contact with the football club and not completely upsetting them, but also being 100% against the ownership. And I know that that's true. But if you just sit on the fence or sit in the middle ground and you're an organisation that represents the fans, then what's going to change? Nothing. So that's why United are where they are, because the fans can't congregate and find a way to do it. It's not a global thing. It has to be something for matchday fans, for the guys that actually go, because that's where you get the picture taken of that moment, and that's what flashes around the world. That's what we report on as journalists. If you could have protests for Manchester United fans all around the globe, great. That would be visually striking and be a huge news story, but it won't happen. Because people outside of England and fans that maybe I say, as I said, less invested and are just more into the brand of Manchester United, they're not going to go and protest. They just like their shirts and their baseball caps. So that's difficult. There's certainly lots of United fans abroad who are diehards, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I always feel that, I did that last time. I'm a Boston Celtics fan, and I watched them last night win make it 2-1, and I'm up at 4 a.m. cheering in front of my TV, and I love basketball. So I get what it feels like to be that fan. And when you lose, you feel gutted at 4 a.m. And I know there'd have been loads of United fans who'd have been like that yesterday watching that Palace match. They're every bit as invested as me as a season ticket holder who goes to United. But how do you get these fans together? And I think it is impossible as a global fan base, because there's so much division between each section, country to country, continent to continent. It's not something that I think you can really bring together on social media or just even with individual fan groups.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the Green Devil says here, whatever has to be done needs to be done every home game. It echoes exactly what you're saying. And that's the point, isn't it? And people, I just think the whole hashtag glazes out. I mean, I did it today. I put out a picture, but what's that going to do? It's going to do nothing. A couple of hashtags, get it trending for 3 days. Absolutely nothing. You got to hit them where it hurts. Basically, visually, as you say, at the ground, because like you said, if that starts going around, Man United spread news, and that will go to every corner of the world. And the second thing as well is hitting them where their pockets are. Again, it is the shirts, but people are going to buy merch. So honestly, Rob, it's so difficult, but I've just accepted the situation, and maybe I'm part of the problem. And that's something I want people to say to me. If they think I'm part of the problem, that's fine. But what I will say is that doing all these sort of hashtags is just not going to work. But let's move on to sort of this transfer strategy. Look, we've had a chat in depth about this. Obviously, I put out a clip today of you talking about when David Gill obviously left as well, and when Sir Alex left, the whole structure of the club left. I mean, can you just touch on that again if people haven't heard that? And then also, do you, from what you've heard, from who you've spoken to, do you expect signings to come in? And was there a sort of a kick up the backside after what happened yesterday?
Yeah, I think Gary Neville said it best on Sky during the game. He went, "These are the kind of results and performances that get a board into action." They would have gone and talked to each other after the game. They were there obviously at the match yesterday. Ed Woodward was pictured by the TV cameras, and there will be an extra urgency to get business done, because Manchester United, part of their business is public relations, PR, how the club looks. And I said to you before, and I've said to plenty of people, Manchester United, especially the last 2 or 3 years, are obsessed with winning the transfer window. They like winning it. They like being the team on deadline day that everyone goes, because that boosts their profile all around the globe. They become the news story. And I work in this industry. I've seen it where United buy a player and the world stops, and all other football news doesn't mean anything. And the only thing that matters is that signing on that day. So United are cool and calm when it comes to those things, because they know that it is a long game. This is a game of chess. It takes time. You can't really win it in one move at the beginning of the game. And they have got targets. I think what changes is that if you look at that back four, like we've said there, you can't just go out and buy a brand new back four tomorrow. It's not going to happen. There's no way you're going to buy a whole new back four before October the 5th. But you need to look at where your main weaknesses are. We know that Maguire is going nowhere. He was bought for £80 million. And as I said, last season, he proved, statistically at least, without his individual performances.
Rob, I'm not a fan.
No, look, and people say to me, "Oh, I'm a fan of Maguire," and I'm like, "I'm not a fan of Maguire at all. I think he's too slow." But you've bought him for £80 million. What are you going to do? Flog him to someone for 30 million? That would be the worst kind of business. The correct thing to do is you build. You keep building. You build around him and with him, and you give other players chances. And it might be a case that within a year, 2, 3, that Mengi, Tuanzebe, other players, a new signing, displace him. Or it could be a case that in a year's time his form has improved and we're all going, no, do you know what, he's a rock now. So we can't be reactionary with these things. The way I look at it is this. I think Lindelof has been at the club a long time now, going back to Mourinho. We've had a really good look at him. We've watched him every week. He's been a starter for a long period now. I think when he came to United, he wasn't starting, and that was a problem in terms of him getting minutes. But he's not good enough. So I think it's fair for fans to look at that and say, yep, we want a new centre-back to replace him, or at least a change of personnel there. I think Harry Maguire's been at the football club a year. I still think, there's a reason why he was given the armband, and that is because he has made an impact at United, and the coaching staff love him, and the players love him, and he has united people behind the scenes. So he was rewarded for that. Is he the best centre back in the world? Is he a world record signing centre back? Absolutely not. No, he's not. But he did do very well at Leicester before that, and he did do really well with England. So it's about, I think, combinations. I always say this: centre backs, full backs, central midfielders, centre forwards. When you're bunching them together and playing together, that's how the chemistry works, and moving those sections through a team. And I do think that it will work with Maguire if he's got pace next to him. If he's got pace next to him, he doesn't need to worry. What you see now, and you saw it yesterday, is that when Lindelof goes to his man to mark, Maguire drops. But Maguire yesterday tried to stay on the shoulder of his own striker, but they struggled because whenever there was space behind, they both know they're going to get outrun. And when you start like that, you're in trouble, because that means you're defeated up here before you've even played the game. You're
Rob,
constantly...
is that a coaching thing then? If Ollie knows that he's got, because we know that as soon as you look at all the defenders, people talk about Lewis Dunk. Oh, maybe United should go for him. I don't think so. But they all play so deep. They don't play high lines. They're fantastic defenders when you're sitting on the edge of your penalty area. But when you look at United, everyone knows any of the big clubs, apart from maybe the Mourinho sort of tactically sort of set up teams. But you're going to play with a high line. So if Ollie knows that he's got two defenders that aren't working, then that's also has to be a bit more shrewd. Maybe we sit 10 yards further back, but surely that is a managerial thing, because obviously he's made that selection. Tactically, he's made that selection, which a lot of us, anyone can see that it's not working. Obviously, he gave them another opportunity. But then if he's going to play them, that there's just such a lack of pace. Palace had three very quick forwards who are going to exploit it. We knew the Palace were going to sit back on the deep and just hit us on the break, and they'd be very direct. And that's what they did. And, whether people agree with the selection or not, I think people have a right to say about the manager that you got your tactics completely wrong there.
It's difficult. You can't coach people to be faster. Doesn't work. You can get them to sit deeper and all of this. If you sit deeper, then the attacking midfielders exploit you because you're leaving all the space in front. It's a fine line. If you're playing elite sport at the highest level, and that's what Manchester United is, you have to be good enough. That's the first foremost bit. And this is kind of the bigger debate: is, are these players good enough as partnerships, individually, and all of that? So we talk about pace. The quickest player at Manchester United, whether people acknowledge it or not, is Tim Fosu-Mensah. That's why he played yesterday. Yeah, obviously Aaron Wan-Bissaka couldn't be in the team because obviously coming back from his holiday late and coronavirus restrictions. But Tim was in there because he is the quickest player at the football club, and he was there to add a bit of coverage. However, he's not a wildly experienced player. We know that. You mentioned there his loan spells and stuff. He's not really an elite fullback. We all know this. But this is Ole trying to address the issues that he had. And like I keep saying, this football team yesterday would have been picked on all the sports science information, all the stuff that they would have looked at when they played Crystal Palace last year with the matchups, and they would have felt that what they had was good enough. Now, if Manchester United had been fit yesterday, I think they beat Crystal Palace. I think if they're fit, they beat Crystal Palace. They're too good at retaining the ball compared to Palace. And I think Palace, when you make them run, they get tired. If you let them run, though, if you just give them space to run, they'll run all day. And that's what happened. We got to that part of the game where obviously Van der Beek scored his goal and it was a really good finish. And United tried to respond, but it was too late in the game. There was still too much space for Palace to run into. It's really hard to make it about binary choices. Like we're saying, should the centre-backs be here, 10 yards forward or 10 yards back? It's much more holistic than that. I always use that word all the time in football. There's always about 8 things going on when we talk about a tactic. One tactic, there's about 10 things to consider. And I think with United yesterday, I think you can put it down. Let's try and really kind of nail it down to the smallest kind of differentials. The differential for me, and this is me as a United fan, as a journalist, is that Victor Lindelof isn't good enough. It's as simple as that. Victor Lindelof does not get any in the top 10 teams for me at all. Victor Lindelof does not start at Sheffield United. So when you look at it like that, that's the crunch point for Ole, because he then has to make those choices. And he has to go to the board and say, right, I've tried Lindelof for 18 months, get rid. And that's what he has done with other players. The whole of last year was about weeding out players that he didn't feel were good enough for United. Guys who were on incredible wages at United, whether it be the Sanchez's or the Lukaku's or any of that. Players who have obviously gone to like Italy and proved themselves. Ashley Young was on a big deal at Man United, and obviously he got to the end of that and went to Inter, and he's done all right at Inter. But that doesn't mean because he's done all right at Inter that he was the right player for Man United. And we're still in this transition. I know fans don't want to hear it. I keep saying that as well. But you have to replace these cogs one at a time. You can't read what Chelsea have done is exceptional, and they had the money sat there, and that's why they executed those deals. But we don't know if they're going to be better yet. We need to watch them and see how that clicks and gels. But I do think Ole will be looking at yesterday's game and thinking, I need something more at centre-back. And then the choice might be, Ed Woodward might say to Ole, right, we'll go and get you your centre-back, but you can't have Jadon Sancho. Because that's how this.
Yeah,
that's exactly how it works. You saw it with All or Nothing, didn't you? You watched obviously the Mourinho program with Spurs and Levy was quite frank because obviously that he was supposed to be in his documentary, and he was like, fans do not understand how tough it is when we're balancing the books. They just want a player, and we have to go and negotiate, and then we get to the end of negotiations and we go, it doesn't work for us. And United are privy to all of that. It's the same issues. And I think that might be where Ollie is. They might be saying to him, do you want Jadon over a centre-back? And he might be saying, I can cope with my centre-backs that I've got this year, but give me Jadon Sancho because he's the player that takes me on. He's the one that gets me closer to City, closer to Liverpool. And the fans won't want to hear that because they just want to see players replaced that they don't like. Simple as that.
You make some fantastic points. I'm going to counter them. So what I will say is you do say, I agree. Look, you've got to, it's a process, right? We've been 7 years, for the last 7 years, we've wasted our time, our money, lack of direction. We finally got some direction. So, it's going to take time. We can't go and do it all in one window. We understand that. But what fans will say and what I will say is that I agree with you. You can't go and fix it like Chelsea have. Different sort of, business models, different ambitions. But what I will not stand for is the fact that we know what needed to be done. It was achievable this summer. And you haven't given Ollie those pieces. You've given him one player, but you haven't given him a centre-back, a left-back. Tellez is available. We'll probably get Tellez, I think. I know what we're trying to do. We're trying to get even lower than that 18 million. We've had this discussion. But that's not really the point. I understand there's a financial point of view, but there's also a footballing point of view, which the owners just don't grasp, is that we had this conversation. You said, look, the only deadline is the 5th of October. But for me, and I've already said this as a fan, and even Ollie as a manager, that he needs his players in so that he can integrate them. And this is the point that we can talk all the time about, it takes time. But where's been the action? Where's been the desire to actually make the business early, get the business done? And my second point, I suppose, is that, we talk about the Glazers and obviously the money that they've put in, 1.2 billion. But I think, as you said earlier, with the debt, people forget there's almost 900 million that's gone out in debt, and the interest on the debt, obviously, that will probably include the dividends. It's about 200 million, I believe, since they've been here. Fans don't have an issue. I don't have an issue if the owner doesn't put a single penny into the club, because the club makes so much money on itself. It generates so much that it can actually function without an oligarch. It could be owned by the fans and spend 200 million every year. If you look at, you look at the sort of finances. The biggest issue is that there's 900 million that's come out the club in terms of debt and interest that could have been put into the club over the last 15 odd years. And I think that's the problem that fans have. So I agree with you. Look, it's a process. And I'm happy to wait 2 or 3 years if I see every single summer there's been action taken. And when I say that, director of football is the first choice, which we've already discussed. I want to see, maybe this summer we bring 4 players in the fall, we fix the other areas. I'm happy to see that. And then 2 years' time, we go and we actually challenge for the title. But what we're seeing at the moment is, I honestly can see a situation where we wait, miss out on Sancho, panic buy, bring in Douglas Costa on loan, Alex Tellez, maybe one more. And then what happens? United miss out on top 4. And that's what I'm going to ask you now. Are you worried about the upcoming season? I know it's one game, we shouldn't be reactionary, but from looking at Arsenal, they look a lot better, 6 points from 6. Chelsea will take time to gel. Everton look fantastic. I watched them yesterday, absolutely fantastic. So much creativity. So much drive as well in their side. They just look a completely different side. Wolves, again, a good side. As you're saying, these are the teams we're competing for. We're not going for Liverpool. Liverpool have gone and bought Thiago. They're on another level. They're on a different planet to us. Man City will probably get Koulibaly before the end. So United are really now batting out for those top four. So Spurs just spanked, Southampton 5-2. They've brought in Bale and Reguilon. They've improved. That's the problem. We as fans can, and people can say to us, okay, be patient, etc. And that's fine. I'm happy to be patient. But history suggests that they're not going to do what we want them to do. They're not going to follow this plan because they're not going to bring those players in that we need. And when that happens, you can vent your anger towards Ollie, but you're just short-sighted because he's just like us. He wants what we want, but he's not getting it.
Yeah, again, let's kind of clear a few things up. The 1.2 billion that they've spent on players, they haven't spent it on players. Manchester United have spent it. It's not the owners. The owners haven't put that in. Yeah, it's purely from Manchester United's funds and how the structure of the football club works. So that's one thing. The other side of it is when we talk about be patient, it's the process of building a football team and a football club. Yeah, United have been so badly mismanaged through the last decade. And even when we won the title in the final year, it wasn't fantastic. There were still issues in the squad that those things needed rectifying, and they were not rectified. David Moyes comes in, he gets Fellaini, he gets Mata, didn't really address what the problems were. Van Gaal comes in, buys a load of players, didn't really address anything. Mourinho comes in, brings in Ibrahimovic, everyone gets excited. Brings in Pogba, everyone gets excited. Buys Mkhitaryan, does nothing. There's too much scattergun approach with Manchester United in 10 years with signings. And this is why we've had to kind of say, stop. And this is what I think Ed Woodward has kind of proclaimed this, and he's admitted that his own mistakes, that United have gone out there with this kind of Galactico mentality, thinking that just buying names is how you build a football team. Now, Liverpool are back on the top of their perch after so many years because they built their club from the bottom up incrementally with Klopp. The players that they bought, when they bought Robertson for 9 million from Hull, did any Man United fan blink an eye? No. When Van Dijk was on the market, did any Man United fans really want him? No. They didn't want Mane. They wouldn't have wanted Firmino. They laughed at Salah and called him a Chelsea reject. So you have to kind of stop and go, right, how do you build a football club? And Ole is trying to build this football team in the image of what Manchester United traditionally is as a football team. That's built on youth, pace, built on skill, and giving players, empowering them to go and do their jobs on the football pitch. And I like that. You look at someone like Mourinho, he has a kind of very structured, handcuffed approach to his team. Positionally, they play a low block. That's not how Ole wants to play. And Ole's going to live and die by that. So whatever players he does get in the next 2 weeks, he's got to make it work. Even if he gets no more players, it's his neck on the block, and he gets that. And those players then have to rise to it. Now, he's got a squad full of players. And that's why I say you then have to judge everyone individually about, are they good enough? Is Tim Fosu good enough as a right-sided defender to come into a team when you need to just cover with pace? Probably not. If you lose a player in a key position, like, you mentioned Luke Shaw at the start there, he was definitely part of the issue with the first goal yesterday. But I thought he actually improved through the game. So is Luke Shaw the big problem at Manchester United? Well, we saw at the end of the season when he didn't play, United had terrible troubles without Luke Shaw. So it is all about a balance, about who you bring in and what you do with them at that point. I think someone like Van der Beek is going to change that midfield in terms of its output and its philosophy and maybe its goals. I think you'll see that has a knock-on effect to Bruno, that has a knock-on effect to Pogba. I think in the big games, you'll see Matic come back in, obviously, when he's ready. There will be better starting lineups for Manchester United and better results and better days to come. But people do have to be patient because it does take time. Even if you've got all the money in the world, you have £1 billion, go and buy £1 billion of footballers like Man United have done. They've bought £1 billion of footballers and failed. And that happens so much in football. Even the team that's been promoted, Fulham came up last time, didn't they? Spent £125 million and got relegated. Aston Villa came up last year, spent £120 million and almost got relegated. Spending money isn't success, doesn't always garner. It's very rare that it does. Liverpool have got their success from building incrementally and finding the right player at the right time from the right football club that works with their philosophy. I would rather Manchester United do that. And that's what they are trying to replicate. And so I'm certainly not an advocate of the board or Ed Woodward. 100% not, certainly. But that is what United are trying to do. They're looking at players who improve them. Van der Beek, people weren't really hot on him, were they? When the rumours kind of started dropping, everyone was like, oh, Van der Beek, what's he going to do? But, we said, pundits going on radio going, they don't need Van der Beek. They've got Scott McTominay. It's crazy. It's not.
Yeah,
that's the reactionary side of the football world that I think football fans, they try and stay away from, but then they actually go and invest in it because they kind of say the similar things. You've just got to wait and see. And, if we go out in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks and get a centre back or get Sancho, there will be a kind of shift in terms of the excitement around the team. Obviously yesterday everything's flat because you've lost to Crystal Palace. But that was a Crystal Palace team that were ready to go out and win the game. Man United weren't. They just weren't ready. And that's more for me. That's my criticism of Ole and of the backroom staff, is that whatever happens, it's up to you to get the players ready. That's how it is with the fitnesses. They said Wan-Bissaka was left out because he came back from holiday late. And I think that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. A player comes back late from holiday. So I've got no problems with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think he's a great young lad, and I think he's a player who can progress and get better. That's not right. He should, if he's coming back late, this is his job. So yesterday he didn't play, and that might have helped United. United might have stopped one of those goals going in if he was playing. So there's lots of things you see, all these little key components where we talk about in terms of building football teams and what happens in football matches. Some are tactical, some are choices, some are individual errors. I think with Man United, the bigger issue, maybe even going back all the way to Mourinho, has been individual errors. We've seen them yesterday, first goal, individual error, like what's going on. Second goal, when Zaha scored that goal, great finish, individual error though. Unless you beat him in that 50-50, he doesn't get that shot. So lots of things like that. And I think they are the intricate things that need to be looked at more than just say, right, I want United to spend another 100 million here, another 200 million there. I don't know if it's about spending money. It's about buying the right players at the right time. If you go and buy someone like Robertson and develop him for a year for 9 million quid, are United fans going to be really hot on that? No, but it would be the right thing to do. That's how you do it.
Absolutely. And that's why, look, we've got to end now, Rob. And that's a fantastic answer. Look, guys, Rob is a fantastic guest. Hopefully be working with me more. So, make sure you give him a follow. But what I will say is the idea of Malang Sarr actually excites me. That sort of signing more than Douglas Costa, or probably more than a Bale. But I'm just going to read out a few comments before we go. The Green Devil, do we have a data analysis at United? Do we rely on names and word of mouth from scouts? Look, when I spoke to Liverpool journalist, he actually said that Liverpool have got the best data analytics in the whole of the UK, probably up there with City and Leicester. You see what their recruitment's like. And there was one story he was saying where there was one guy who works there who basically picked a player. I spoke to Rob about this last time. He picked a player just based on the analytics, not having seen him play. United are 4 or 5 years behind on that. They are starting to do that, and that's why you're seeing better players come in. You are seeing a much more measured approach, is what Rob is saying. But like he says, he's got to take time. I'm getting love from my own brother. Hello, mate. Hope work went well. I'll speak to you later. He's the man behind all the editing and all the short clips you see him. So he's doing some great stuff. I'm getting some love as well from Ray. Thank you, mate. I'm not a vlog merchant though. So I'm a podcaster. So yeah, that'd be better. But yeah, look, guys, so all these comments are the same. I just think that we just got to have a little bit of patience. It's very frustrating. If we don't sign anyone by the end, I will be very annoyed and I'll be sharing in all the anger. But Rob, I'll give you the last word. A little ray of positivity. Go on, hit the fans with that.
You just got to wait and see. There's no doubt, we know this, that Manchester United are doing business behind the scenes. And the fact that they haven't concluded their business is part, again, for several factors in terms of third parties and transfer fees and everything else that goes with it. But they are trying to improve the team. And I do think that when we get to October the 5th, there might be one more, there might be two more. But you know what? We do live in a world where these things sometimes don't happen. Yeah, and you might not get Sancho, you might not get anyone. And that would mean that it would be a tough season for United. I know you're saying about being a positive ending there. And if United don't sign anyone else, then it's absolutely going to be, I think, a tough season for United with the other teams that are around them who've improved. I think Everton are a top 4 viable team this year. I've said that for weeks now. You look at their chemistry, what they've got on the pitch. they're going to be really, really good. But I think also you've got to just give Ole a little bit of space to breathe. You can try and hang him now at this point, but no one wins the title on day one. No one wins the title in the first month of the season. And we saw with United last year, ended up third, yeah? They were awful in the first part of the season, weren't they? They were really bad. They didn't look like anything like a top 4 team. And they ended up having the best record in the Premier League outside of Liverpool and Manchester City. So that's the hope. You just hope that these guys get back on it, get their fitness up. I'm not happy that they didn't get the fitness levels ready for yesterday. I think that is an oversight. But what you just said there about analytics and stuff, United have exactly the same analytics as Liverpool and City and every other team. Every Premier League team has analytics. Championship teams have analytics. My local club around here have analytics to sign players now. Every club does it. No one's really further of think because that's just a normal way of doing it, like sports science is with health. So it's just a given now at the top of the game. And I think United, they're looking at the players that will bring into the football club that will improve the team immediately. And that's obviously what we want to see as fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And James Jackson says here it was the first time I've questioned Ollie yesterday. Look, mate, I know you're a big supporter of his. And look, I had these sort of doubts early on in Christmas. Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. The last thing I'm going to say is, yeah, look, I have doubts whether he can take us from B to C. I've said to you before, we've spoken privately, A to B. A to B is cleaning up all the mess. The 7 years of mess. He's also got owners that aren't willing to fund the rebuild as and when he wants it. The question is, can he get us from B to C? So B to C for me is Champions League, far in the Champions League or Champions League titles and the Premier League title. That's where I have my doubts. And look, that's something we're just going to have to wait and see. But what I will say, and the last point, is that Ollie will leave the club in a better shape than Mourinho did before him. And I think that's all you can ask him to do. He's got a tough job on his hands. Rob, you're going to add, there's one last question from Maram. Do you think we'll sign Sancho? Honestly, for me personally, the fact we didn't go for Bale suggests to me we're doing all we can to sign Sancho. Whether it happens, I spoke to someone just before I spoke to you, Rob, and he said they're at an impasse in terms of the structure of the fee. And if United can't sort that, then they need to do something.
Yeah, I'll answer both those kind of questions simultaneously. I think Sancho is still a possibility in the sense that United are working on it. What's an impasse today, tomorrow is solved. It depends on how much a club wants a player, doesn't it? We saw it with Harry Maguire last year. I just think with Ole and, what will happen with him, he is judged exactly the same as every manager is. You said there that I'm a fan of Ole. I'm not really a fan of Ole. I believe in giving people chances. So he's a manager of Manchester United. He came third last year. We got to 3 semi-finals. I don't think one bad game means that you shoot him. I just don't believe that. I'm willing to wait 6 months or a year to see how the team develops. I did the same with Mourinho. When Mourinho came in, I was like, yeah, he's a winner. Give him a year. Obviously, first year was good. Second year came second. Third year, disaster. Get out the football club. That's how it works. Unfortunately, you can kind of talk about fan clubs and all of this. I really don't believe in having fan clubs about players or managers. You're a Man United fan. That's kind of that is what you're a fan of.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the modern fan, isn't it?
And yeah, if United, of course, and if United lose games, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be sacked 100%. That's how it would be. And if United lose 5 games in a row at the start of the season, he will be sacked and Pochettino might come in. And I will be all right with that because I think, it's about proving how good you are on that day on each game. Yesterday, Manchester United proved that they weren't good enough. They weren't better than Crystal Palace yesterday. And Crystal Palace were the better team and deserved the 3 points. And forget about the penalty and the handball, which was just like absolutely crazy. That's the rules. That's not anyone's fault, is there? But ultimately, I look at United and I think that if you give Ole time and space like we did last year, I think he's got the plan to make improvements. And if he gets Sancho, I would say Sancho is 50-50. I know it sounds like sitting on the fence, but United will either say early next week that they're done with Sancho, and you'll see that rush through social media, through the journalists and through myself and people like that, because they will be vocal about it. Or you'll see that they'll just go chasing after another target very, very quickly and rapidly because they've got to get it done now. They've got no choice. It's 3 weeks. They have got other targets. There are other players they're looking at. We've seen today Dele Alli has popped up on the spectrum. Yeah, Dele Alli could well be available at some point. Now, Man United have scouted him countless times.
It's a swap.
Sorry?
I'll
Well,
take him.
exactly. They're talking about 30 million for Lingard. It's like 30 million. It's like, yeah, we'll bite your hand off of that. But if there was a deal there to be had just to upgrade the midfield, Dele Alli isn't the perfect signing, but if Ole's looking at just improving the pieces that he's got available, Dele Alli is an upgrade on Lingard. It's just simple as that. And that might be where we end up. If Sancho doesn't happen, we might see maybe a couple of players come in who are a bit more left field signings, but actually have an impact in the same way that Igalo did. When Igalo came in, there was kind of an impact part of just having him in the squad and having him available, wasn't there? So Ole wants players. He has not said anything. He's not played the card of saying, "Oh, I'm with the owners, and we don't need players," or like Fergie once did, saying there's no value in the market. That was protecting the centre of the Manchester United ownership at that point, because he was trying to say there's no value, but of course there's value in the market. There's tons of value. For Ole, it's about finding the players and getting the players that he wants. And we know that Sancho, he spoke to him last week. That wasn't just paper talk. And if he'd spoken to him last week and there wasn't a deal to be had, it would be finished. Yeah. And it isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic way to end. Zarik saying, if true, no, I don't want Sancho. Why is his name all over again? They do want Sancho. He's a first choice target. He's been first choice target for 2 years even. United wanted him last summer, but they decided that they wanted Maguire because they thought centre back was more important. They thought right back was more important. Anyone that's saying it's not on or they're not in for him, just don't listen to it. United are in for him. Just wait till the end. Look, Rob, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've had a great conversation with you. I feel a lot better. It's like therapy. I'm sure a lot of the listeners have as well. Look, mate, you're always welcome to come back on the podcast. Let's hope that United sign a few players. And where can people find some more of your work? So I know you do your own podcasts.
Yeah, I'm up, obviously, there. Everything's through Twitter, and you can see my handle there next to my name on the screen. So I'm at _Rob_B, or if you just Google Rob Blanchette, or if you just Google Rob B, generally I come up first on all the search engines. So, and I'm going to be obviously releasing my own podcast as well in the next few weeks, doing certainly different things in football. Some will be Manchester United based, some will just be football based, some will be about journalism. So look out for that on Twitter and give us a follow.
Absolutely, definitely do that. And guys, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're the Premier League Trio on YouTube. Give us some support. We're getting some great guests like Rob. You're always going to get top caliber and top quality guests like Rob. So make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you next